Hi all. In session 3, we'll be looking at the cultural impact and role of culture in international marketing. Our key learning objectives, therefore, revolve around culture, what culture is, and secondly, impact of culture on international marketing strategy, campaigns, organizations, and the personnel involved. When considering international marketing, similar to the local marketing strategy, developing strategy campaigns, the international marketer also should take into account the environmental factors and keeping in mind that these factors you have no control over with. The macro environmental factors, just like in home market or native market strategies, the economic development, level of technological development, socio-cultural influences, the trends, and the political and legal factors need to be considered. And also keeping in mind, just as I said earlier, you have no control over this, and when it comes to international marketing, you have a much wider scope, much wider set of factors to consider, including geopolitical factors, geopolitical influences, major macroeconomic factors, influences, etc. Not only that, you need to be mindful and taking into consideration the meso-environmental factors such as competition, the business practices, and the institutions that are involved with this in these markets. I mentioned the word culture and socio-cultural influences. What do you think? When you're launching an international campaign, does culture impact uh, your strategy that much, or is it very similar to your local market? Well, before we look at the impact of culture, let's look at what is culture. Of course, we have used this word over and over again for a long time. From our childhood, we have spoken about culture, but do we really understand, or can we define what culture is, or how culture has evolved, or how does it come into action? Look at these couple of points. Culture is learned behavior passed on from one generation to another, so it's not innate. Often it is difficult barrier for outsider to cross. Now here we are talking about a person outside this particular culture or subculture. He or she might find it difficult to understand or have a good insight to these cultural norms, what these people prefer, their rituals, etc. Because we tend to most of the time observe other people from your point of view, the context of your own cultural values. Because of that, you find it a little bit tough to understand a culture which is alien to you. A culture can be described as the personality of the society or the market that we are looking at, the personality. That means it will be the way this society or the market or this group of people behave. So it will manifest, it will come out through maybe art, language, literature, rituals, practices, norms, how they speak, how they dress, how they accept other people. All these would come out through these different facets. So if you look at a definition, we can safely say culture is a sum total of learned beliefs, values and customs that serve to direct customer behavior in a particular market or a country or an area. So it's a whole set of social norms and responses, the way they do things. So that is what can be defined as culture. Now, we say even in the local market, culture is an important factor when you design your marketing strategy. And now, in today's context, where our world has evolved, it has become a mixed marketplace, lots of migration, lots of interlinks. So therefore, the trends have moved from the days of merely saying, okay, we know the needs and wants of Jane and John, but rather now you need to think of Raj and Rodriguez. Their needs too should be considered. Let me give you a couple of mistakes that organizations have made, and they have become failures in those markets. McDonald's suffered from a failure to understand the cultural practices of Israel. The Jews campaigned against McDonald's. In India, McDonald's failed because they, although being a giant brand in the world, with so much of research and development, they failed to understand that beef was a big no-no. It's not, I'm loving it. They worship the cow. So because of that, beef was a big no-no, but yet they went ahead with that and became a total failure. Nike, the big brand that we all know, was forced to withdraw a line of training shoes because the logo that they had on these shoes looked like it was on flames, and that resembled the word Allah. And in the Arabian Gulf, when they marketed it, the Muslims were pretty annoyed with that. And not only that, they had a poster sometime back, somewhere in 90s, early 90s or mid 90s, featuring a basketball player called John Williams, who played for Los Angeles Clippers, and he was nicknamed by the fans themselves as Allah. So Nike took it up and they thought it was a great idea, put it on the poster, but it was a total failure. Pepsi versus Coca-Cola. In the Saudi Arabian market, Pepsi is the leading brand in most of the markets. 80% of the Saudi Arabian markets, Pepsi is leading, simply because Coca-Cola has been unable to gain an understanding about the culture. They usually feature people, the everyday people, who look like Westerners. But on the other hand, Pepsi is either they just go with the logos and the brand names and the taglines, or when they feature people, they feature people who look like Middle Eastern day-to-day people. Look at this. I'm not going to go through all these, but few interesting names. Fucking, a liquor in Netherlands. Crap, toilet paper, Sweden. Last climax, tissue papers, Japan. I really don't know what they use it for. Right.